This is Diplomatic Ties on the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. And we are featuring the Cuban ambassador to Nigeria, Miriam Morales Palmero. She's talking on Cuba-Nigeria relations, and we are bringing you this edition of the program from the Cuban Embassy in Nigeria. Stay with us. Your Excellency, you're the first ever female ambassador I am interviewing on this program, and I'm so delighted to have you.
Oh, thank you. I reading about that, but for me it's a pleasure that was the first lady here with you, but a very, very beautiful lady from Nigeria too.
Oh, thank you, Your Excellency.
Yeah.
I'm blushing, you
Yeah.
can see. After 50 years of diplomatic relations between Nigeria and your country, Cuba, what can you point as the greatest benefits of this relationship?
Okay, in this 50 year of our bilateral relation, I want to put some important issue.
Yes.
Is the 50 year of we signing the bilateral relation between the both countries. But our bilateral relation coming centuries ago. When we received in Cuba the millions of life from Africa, the more than in Cuba was the Nigeria. For that reason, we say that in Cuba, the people say, who doesn't have Congo has Caravali. Why? Because the Congo, from Congo, coming to Cuba. And from Calabar, here in Nigeria, also. And from that, the Cuban say that. It's a very close relation before this 50 year. Okay, a part of this 50 year of our bilateral relation, they have many close areas in between the two countries can to work together. I remember during the 19th, the many Nigerian delegation was in Cuba and the Cuban delegation coming to Nigeria. Even sometime I meet somebody and say, my father was in Cuba during the Fidel era or when Fidel was alive. But the most important is our relation growing at a very good level.
Wonderful.
That is very important in different sectors.
Okay.
Today, we are talk about this important issue because the Cubans have the very high level professional in health system, and we can offer in Nigeria.
Like you mentioned that Cuba has expertise in medicine and all that. Now, Cuban doctors and engineers, we are regularly made available to help with the healthcare needs of developing countries of the world. Is this policy still in place?
Both countries, in this case, Nigeria and Cuba, or the another country?
Other countries.
Other
yes.
countries.
Yeah.
Why?
Developing countries.
Because, the another developing country,
Yes.
like you say.
Yeah.
Why? Because in the actual financial situation they live in all the countries in the world,
Yes.
the Cuban no escaped of this situation. Since the triumph of the revolution in 1963, is the first time the Cubans sent the doctors to Algeria.
Yeah.
It's the opening of the solidarity principle of Cuba, like Fidel said. But now, at that time, It's like no, it's not to pay in the base of economical issues, solidarity, because it's the same just talk about our relation with Nigeria and with Africa.
Yeah.
Was when the time of the beginning of our revolution, they say even Fidel, before he left,
Yes.
he said, they are friend in the world, they are African brother and sister, need to know that Cuba never abandoned Africa.
Oh, really?
We have different programs, and we offering to Nigerian government, because in Cuba was graduating 400 Nigerian students, more than of them in the medicine school. They, many of them, is in different hospital here today in Nigeria. And in the actuality, have from Kaduna state, they have some studying in Cuba. 6 of them was graduating the last August. And the gold student. This is a very good quality, because the student, the African student, has very intelligent,
Yeah.
smart. They study too much. There's
They love
force.
education.
They love education.
Yes.
And that is important. In terms of
And
the doctors,
Cuba is ready to educate them.
yes, no, really, because our system in the medicine school is the theoretical and practice.
Okay.
They are arriving,
Yeah.
6 months learning Spanish,
Okay.
and in the first year of degree, they go directly to the hospital or polyclinical, and they know how they need to take care of the human. In Cuba, the doctor no see at the human like custom. They saw and the human and the person and the human, the touch.
Yeah.
They have good feeling together, and this is very important.
Yeah, I will ask you this question because, having said the depth of, you're mentioning the depth of Cuba's involvement in Africa, Cuba played a prominent role in the independence struggle in Mozambique, Angola, and the conflict in the Ogaden. Namibia.
Ethiopia.
Yes. Ogaden region is in Ethiopia. And even Cuba sent some troops, Cuban troops, to these countries. What is your present relationship, your country's present relationship
Excellent.
with all these countries?
Excellent.
Where Cuban blood was shed
Excellent.
for the freedom of the people.
Excellent relation with South Africa, with Angola, with Namibia, Mozambique, Ethiopia. More of the, I don't know if you have the record. In African Union, every year, all the members signing and support the resolution of Cuba for end of the blockade and from remove of Cuba of the list, the spurious list of the country that's the sponsor of terrorists. That is the Africa from Cuba, and that is Cuba in Africa.
Now, Your Excellency, you had already mentioned that Cuba is on top of its game in terms of medical services. Cuba, you said, has an enviable record in providing training for students from developing countries of the world in sciences, medical sciences, engineering, agriculture, and so many other areas of excellence. How can Cuba sustain this laudable program given the country's other economic challenges?
Okay. First of all, it's because the Cuban government have the political voluntarity for the development, first, the Cuban people. This is first. The idea of Fidel, of the development, the science and technology, the development in health system, the development in sports, and in the another area, pharmaceutical, biotechnology, is the base that the Cuban today can to provide, not only from the Cuban people, also abroad. For continuity alive is the unity of the Cuban people. The unity is equal to the victory, and the victory is the good development of the country.
You know, like you said, nothing can happen, nothing can happen without unity. It is with unity that everybody, every country, every family moves, and achieves a lot. Mm-hmm. It's in unity that we can achieve a lot. During your country's 50-year celebration of diplomatic ties with Nigeria, you titled it The Day of Cuban Culture. You pledged to expand bilateral cooperation with Nigeria in many fields. What sectors do you intend to expand?
Okay, biotechnology,
Okay.
pharmaceutical,
Okay.
agriculture, because we have today, even in agriculture, we have the biotechnology method inside of the agricultural process and different, what we calling agri-pharma, that our life, we are survivor,
Yeah.
and then we come to transmit the another country how we can make that.
Yes, you want to teach. You want to teach Nigeria.
No.
You know.
I not use teach.
Okay.
Because I prefer the interchange of experience.
Okay.
Because we can teach Nigeria, but we need to learn how Nigeria, in this big country, the most big country in Africa, 36 states, I think 500 ethnic group, the multicultural country, they coming together. That is a very important lesson for the world.
It's a symbiotic relationship.
Uh-huh.
Nigeria gives you, you give Nigeria.
Yeah, that is important. That is important.
Thank you very much.
That is important thing.
Excellency, you led Cuba's Chamber of Commerce on a visit to Nigeria's Minister of Budget and Economic Planning. And you said there and then that Cuba and Nigeria are going the same way. What do you mean by that?
The Cuban and Nigerian coming in the same way because, first of all, that we have in our bloc Nigerian ADN, that we have the same cultural tradition. In our food, the traditional food of Cuba is part of Nigerian food.
Can you mention some of the foods?
Okay, you have here amala.
Amala, yes.
We have amala in Cuba.
Really?
But we call tamal.
Okay.
Because it is different names, but it's the same way.
Yeah.
We love eating chicken like Nigeria. Some part of our country, the cassava is...
Cassava?
Yes,
you
of
have
course.
Cassava in Cuba?
In Cuba. We have cassava in Cuba. So in some part, in the east part of Cuba, the people eat cassava like you are here, the pan de ñan. You understand?
Really?
Yes. They have many things, but the most important is why we say in the same way. Because the both countries was continued in the very strange relationship in not only Nigeria and Cuba in the commercial issue, also in the multilateral arena. Because the both countries work for development of the country, for the people coming with a very good life and in peace, and we are in the same way.
If I may ask you at the global level, how do Nigeria and Cuba operate?
Okay, at the global, I'm telling you about the multilateral arena.
Yes, that's right.
It's the international level.
Yes.
Is that how we say thank you Nigeria, thank you government of Nigeria, the Nigerian people, because the Nigerian government support Cuba in United Nations. During the General Assembly, we presenting our resolution for the necessity for put the end of the blockade, the financial, commercial, and economical blockade the U.S. Put against Cuba people. That is very important.
Yeah.
Also, the Nigerian and Cuba, as part of the non-aligned movement for many years, the G77 plus China group. This is the son of one areas and in the international level.
This is Diplomatic Ties on the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. And we are featuring the Cuban ambassador to Nigeria, Miriam Morales Palmero. She's talking on Cuba-Nigeria relations, and we are bringing you this edition of the program from the Cuban Embassy in Nigeria. Stay with us. Now let's talk about another issue. Yes, Your Excellency, Cuba has been under U.S. economic blockade for over 64 years, and Cuba is still kicking and moving on. What's the magic?
Okay, it's not magic, it's sacrifice. It's resilience. It's the say, nobody can to block these people. Nobody can to remove the sovereignty and independence of the one country that they are arriving in 1959, 1st January, after liberation of the country.
Cuba.
Is Cuba. It's the one country, and the all people, they have the same right. Black, white, yellow. No have any difference. All the Cuban people have the same right. They go to school, they go to the hospital. They have opportunity to practice the sports. You don't need to take a lot of money for becoming a champion.
You're saying that no one can put Cuba down?
No, never. Because we never forget. My mommy passed away, tell me all the time. Before of the triumph of the revolution, my mommy, very intelligent lady, need to work for cleaning because she was black. The majority of the women in Cuba, they fighting during our fighting because they want to the release. And the revolution triumphs, and they give the role of the Cuban in the society.
Now, how would you react to the U.S. and Western allegations that Cuba is a dictatorship with bad human rights records and does not allow free and fair elections? Now you're giving me a different thing altogether.
That is a part of the opposition of the socialist system. The problem is that the opposition of Cuba, they want to destroy the system in Cuba have. For that reason, I talk about you the blockade. It's the financial, economic, and commercial blockade. It's 3 steps because they want to affix economical to the Cuban people for blocking the system.
This your problem with the U.S., the relationship between Cuba and U.S., is there any plan to reset it? Has Cuba tried anything, or has America tried anything to
Let me telling you
make
something.
peace?
Okay. The Cuban people don't have any problem with the American citizen and American people. We have very good friends there. We have very good relation with the American people. The problem is not the American people.
Okay.
It's the administrations.
Your Excellency, let me bring you back to Nigeria. How long have you been in Nigeria? And
Oh.
yes, of course. And what do you like most about Nigeria and its
Oh,
people?
I've been here before, uh, during 2011, 2016. I've been in, I think, 12, 15 states of Nigeria.
As an ambassador?
No, I'm here as the second deputy of the embassy. But Nigeria is like my country. I love Nigerians. I love Nigeria because it's a great nation. And this part of our life is not the another country. Like you say, I don't know, I can't to describe you, I know, can't to, how is my feeling? It's like when I arriving in any place in Nigeria, any office, even in my salon, when I come and say, I know one day you tell me ambassador, I'm the same of you. I no accept that nobody touch my back when I come into the one function. Why? No, it's equality.
You're part and parcel of Nigeria.
Yeah, it's past. I'm part of Nigeria, and Nigeria is part of Cuba.
So you like Nigeria?
I like Nigeria. I like the cultural, the multicultural Nigeria is. I like the Yoruba land, I like the Igbo land, I like the Hausa land. All Nigerian, all have the one syncretism, different, that you can smile and that you can to live and you need to enjoy. That is Nigeria.
And I bet you, Your Excellency, Nigeria loves you
Yeah.
as well. Nigeria and Nigerians love you so much. Cuba believes in emancipation. Cuba still believes in freedom,
In independence,
and unity.
and sovereignty.
So sovereignty. That means Cuba is still towing the path that Fidel Castro laid for the country.
We are continuity.
Yes, you're continuing the ideals
of
Cuba, Cuba's Fidel Castro.
Of-
That means Cuba has not derailed from what Fidel Castro wants it to be. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for being on Diplomatic Ties today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you, for being here in my embassy. This is the Cuban house, is the your house, is the Nigerian house too.
Thank you. It's been Diplomatic Ties featuring Nigeria-Cuba relations with the ambassador of Cuba to Nigeria, Miriam Morales Palmero, taking us through the cordial relationship between Nigeria and Cuba, which has spanned many years. And it is on this note that I have to thank you from the Cuban Embassy in Nigeria, Abuja, the capital of Nigeria. This is Nancy Godianunihu. Bye for now.